Welcome. I'm Michelle Kennedy, representing EDC, the Education Development Center, which works closely with SNAP on a couple of different projects that I'll touch on today. I'll be talking about integrated data science activities developed from BJC, AP, CSP, and Sparks curriculum. So just like a little background about the project. Talking about data science and education. So data science is a rapidly growing field. They're predicting 30 to 35% job growth in the next decade. It's one of the highest ranking tech and STEM jobs, median salary of nearly $100,000 in 2020. And this field is only going to get more and more popular. Research is showing that there's a pressing need for education that equips future generations with computational and differential thinking skills to address big data's impact. Data science fosters programming, statistics, creativity, communication skills, all of which are vital in industries as well as everyday life for our students. So because of all of this kind of growing trend around data science, a lot of state and district computer science for all efforts are seeking ways to incorporate data science into computer science as well as other courses at the secondary level. And we're talking about secondary level, middle school, and high school here. That's what we'll be focusing on today. And so the specific project that I'm presenting about is the New York City's Data Science Fellowship. So this is part of a research practice partnership, a long-standing, about 10 years now, research practice partnership between Education Development Center, which is where I work, as well as the New York City Department of Education's computer science education team. And a research practice partnership, just for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, it's a way for researchers and practitioners to really kind of shorten that timeline between research being done on a subject and then that research yielding to results and changes in practice. So really this was just a collaboration between EDC and New York City Department of Education to ensure that students were getting the highest quality education that they could as quickly as possible. So the goal of the Data Science Fellowship was to enhance computer science opportunities in secondary schools, specifically increasing data science education for grades 6 through 12 students and teachers through the implementation of this Data Science Fellowship. So we're targeting 20 teachers during the 2022-23 school year, which was last school year. And this collaboration, we worked on things like data collection and analysis. We were thought partners together. The Education Development Center helped with the evaluation of the project and kind of whether it met the goals. And EDC also developed sample data science activities for integration, which is what we'll be talking primarily about today. So as part of this fellowship, teachers were tasked with developing an integrated lesson or series of lessons focusing on introductory data concepts that they were going to implement in their classrooms by the end of the school year. So support took a number of different forms. We did a lot of asynchronous and synchronous professional learning opportunities, both during the summer before the 22-23 school year and during the 22-23 school year. Professional development was not only aimed at pedagogical strategies and lesson development, but it was also aimed towards building data science content knowledge. So the teachers we were working with had some experience teaching computer science with their grade levels, but they were not necessarily they hadn't necessarily been exposed to data science content before specifically. And then we also provided teachers with sample materials, including example lessons, activities, templates, kind of everything that we could think of to help them get started. And that's what I'll be talking about today, is these data science activities that were developed as part of this partnership. So the goals for the activities, one of the first goals was to support teachers in their learning of data science content and data science pedagogy. These teachers were new to data science. They didn't really know what that looked like. Most of these teachers hadn't ever sat through a data science lesson themselves before or seen these topics taught in a classroom. So we wanted to give them an idea of what that looked like, as well as a way for them to kind of learn a little bit about data science themselves. We also wanted to provide guidance on integrating data science content into other subject areas. A lot of our teachers we were working with taught computer science, but some of them didn't. Some of them also used these data science lessons in non-computer science classrooms. And we wanted to develop strong curricular samples that can be customized to fit the content of the course into which the lessons are being integrated, and as well as to enable teachers to focus on adapting the lessons to meet the needs of their students. So this is especially important for teachers who are a little bit overwhelmed with the data science content, who didn't feel comfortable developing something on their own. We wanted to give them a starting point that they could adapt instead of having them kind of start from zero. We were focusing on a number of learning outcomes for our students. These are from the New York State Computer Science and Digital Fluency Standards. We were specifically working with New York City teachers, so these were the standards that we were trying to align to. However, there can be kind of translated to a number of different other standard alignments. They're mostly focused on collecting and evaluating data, as well as visualizing data sets. We use Snap for these lessons. The activities were developed to take advantage of the ease of use of Snap, allowing lessons to be developed that assume no prior programming experience. So while our teachers coming in often had programming experience, we weren't assuming that the students who were taking these lessons had any experience programming. So Snap really helps to allow us to make these lessons easy for students to access without kind of having to spend a whole couple of class periods or whatnot teaching them programming skills. We wanted them to dive into the data science content directly. And we used microworlds partly to help with that, to really remove the burden of students experiencing the whole Snap environment and allowing them to focus in on a couple of different blocks. And then existing data science libraries were really leveraged to allow for robust data exploration. This includes importing data from a CSP and creating data visualizations, which you'll see a little bit of later. And we also wanted to leverage existing curriculum materials. So these activities were designed to take advantage of previously developed research-backed curriculum. This included labs from the Beauty and Joy of Computing AP Computer Science Principles curriculum, as well as the Sparks Middle School Early High School curriculum, which I put links here on this slide if you want to check that out. You can access those links. The materials for this talk are also on the agenda for the conference, so you can access the slide deck from there. And these labs, the labs we chose to adapt into these standalone lessons were ones that provided a gentle introduction to data science and ones that did not require a lot of prior programming knowledge, just to make it easy for students. So now to dive into the lessons, we're going to highlight 3 of the lessons we developed. The first one was called Dealing with Data, and you'll see a link here, and I'll open up this lesson in just a second. But you can check it out on your own if you want, and feel free to use it and adapt these for your classrooms as well. So in this lesson, students defined a research question, collected data from their classmates, cleaned the data, and then graphed it using Snap. The lesson was modified from a BJC Sparks curriculum, and I linked to the original lesson here. For those of you who are interested, and it's appropriate for middle to high school students. We also offered a variation of this lesson to be implemented using Python, which I won't share today, but a lot of our teachers were using Snap and were familiar with Snap, but some of them weren't, and some of them wanted to use different programming languages. So for some of these lessons, we modified it so it can fall into whatever kind of teachers needed. So I'm going to dive into this lesson just a little bit, just so you kind of see what the lesson looks like, get a feel for what we developed. We used New York City's computer science lesson template here, so all the lessons were in a format that teachers were familiar with. We provided an overview as well as long-term goals and lesson objectives. We suggested a duration for the activity. We also suggested some ways to integrate the content into different lessons and different subject areas. So for this one in particular, students were asking a research question. So that research question could be tailored to maybe a science lesson where students are asking a research question there, or maybe in an English class, they could relate the questions to a piece of literature they read or an article they explored. So we just wanted to provide some guidance here without really dictating exactly what teachers might integrate this into, because we were trying to make and develop broad lessons here. We provided the standards as well as vocabulary, resources. We talked about assessment activities, and then we broke down the lesson in a format that's standard for a lot of New York City classes, including a do now, a mini lesson where you introduce a concept. This one is kind of the thought process of data analysis and kind of how that process works. And then we featured a code along, which is the main activity for the lesson. So you'll see in the activity, Students are asked to define a research question, collect data. They're told how to clean the data. They're given a lot of visualizations as far as the example. They're given some starter code to work with. So this is the starter code here, which we took from BJC Snap, which just has a few blocks here for students to use so that they're not seeing the whole suite of what Snap can do, but can focus on the activity described in the lesson. Students analyze the data, they do a count, and then they visualize and share their findings using a pictogram. And that's the lesson as a general. We also provide some wrap up as well as extension activities. So if students want to go above and beyond or allow for differentiation, there's some extensions there as well. So that's just one example of the lessons that we provided. One of the other lessons we gave was called Analyzing Data in Snap. So this one, students were analyzing squirrel census data, which is data collected from Central Park on what types of squirrels people are seeing, what they're doing, how they're acting, all of that. It's a really fun data set. If you haven't seen it, it's free and available online. Students analyze this data set in Snap. And this was developed independent of any existing computer science curriculum, but it was provided as an additional activity. Variants of this activity was also provided with Google Sheets for teachers who wanted to try that in their classroom. We were actually able to develop an elementary school appropriate lesson here in Google Sheets, not so much in Snap. So you'll see we gave a similar lesson plan here with all of the data, a little bit of a longer mini lesson here, as well as an activity in Snap. So in this activity, students start by looking at the data in Google Sheets, and then they move over to some analysis. You'll see here that we have a 9 through 12 version and then a modified 6 through 8 version, very similar activities, just different levels of questions to help with differentiation. And students use Snap and go back and forth between Snap and this program in Google Sheets, where they do some simple analysis of the data set and what the squirrels were doing. And then they describe kind of the average squirrel sighting as their final activity here in this lesson. So I encourage you to kind of look around at this and the other lesson samples as kind of you have time. Like I said, they're all free and available for your use. And then the last one we worked on was called Analyzing World Health Data. So in this one, students analyze a World Health data set about life expectancy, fertility rates, investigations by country. This one actually we didn't require any programming for, but it was adapted from the BJC AP Computer Science Principles Lab, and it was a good introduction to a lot of data science concepts. We allowed teachers to kind of take this as a starting point and maybe do some programming or some other data analysis afterwards. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about some key takeaways, and then I'll check the chat for questions, and hopefully we'll have time for a minute or two of discussion as well. So we had some great feedback from teachers. Teachers really thought these were great models for how you can get started with importing and analyzing data in Snap. However, there were some concerns about students needing supplemental support on both how to use Snap as well as on some of those intro to data science concepts. And teachers were also asking for more data analysis techniques in Snap, as well as resources, extensions. They basically wanted to see more of what we were able to do. Kind of takes us into our lessons learned. So Snap provides a great basis for getting students started doing data science without the need to front load a lot of programming content. That was something we were hoping to leverage here, and I think we did so successfully. And we also found that data science content is really difficult to cover in depth during short lessons and activities, but you can do it as long as you're doing a narrow focus of what you're trying to achieve in a specific lesson. We also learned that really just teachers were asking for a wider range of example lessons, curriculum material. We were designing for work that would be used broadly across a range of teachers and a range of classrooms, but there's really a need for thinking of data science content that can be integrated into a narrower grade band and or more specific content areas like a science or a history specific lesson that teachers could use. And then additional scaffolding should be provided for students around both using Snap as well as data science key concepts to help students walk away with kind of those learning objectives we're hoping that they will meet. As far as next steps go, we're hoping to iterate over lessons developed based on teacher feedback, continue to develop data science teaching content in SNAP to support computer science teachers as well as teachers of other subject areas. And ideally, hopefully one day we'll have a data bank of lessons that teachers can contribute to and share amongst each other. I know there's a lot going on in the chat and I haven't had any time to check it out, but if you have any thoughts of ways to integrate data science into secondary courses, any ways that SNAP can use to support data exploration, feel free to throw those thoughts in the chat. I think I have 1 or 2 minutes. We can take a look at these thoughts. It looks like a couple other people are working on data science, whether it's through Bootstrap, which is a great program, or Snap. Yeah, I'd love to collaborate with Bootstrap to see what's being done there. Oh, a converter from R to Snaps block, that would be awesome. I know we're trying to see if we can do something similar with Python, which has a huge suite of data science libraries that we can pull from. Awesome. Yeah, if you have any lessons to share, feel free to drop them in the chat or kind of follow up with me and I'll see if I can help distribute those out to other people. Also happy to use the next minute or two to answer any questions you have about what we've done, or feel free to kind of use this time to explore the lessons. Okay, awesome. Thanks, everyone. It's been great presenting, and I hope you learned something and enjoy the rest of your conference.